everybody. Welcome back to Be You, handcrafted by God with yours truly, the one and only Meredith Yuen. Hey, I am so glad you're here. I want to talk a little bit about be that person. What in the world does that even mean? Be that person that spurs one another on in good deeds and in love and in being joyful and having a good attitude. Be that person. You know, I started doing these social media posts on some of my friends that, you know, I wanted to highlight throughout that week. You know, I always am mindful of being a cheerleader. You know, one of the things that's actually one of the things I love to do. Have you ever been a part of anything where, you know, I used to play sports when I was a kid, or rather coming out of high school, I played recreational softball. And there was something about someone being there watching me play and spurring me on as a cheerleader. Come on, Mary, you could do it, you know. 2 strikes, 1 out. You got this, girl. There's something about somebody encouraging as a bystander, someone encouraging you, or someone maybe in close proximity. You got this, man. You could do this, you know. Be the best cheerleader. A friend of mine just right before I started to do this podcast says, you're the best cheerleader and a great friend. And, you know, it's just something that I love to do. I love to encourage others. And, you know, I started doing these social media social media postings, you know, some of my friends that I've been around and have seen some areas highlighted in their life. And, you know, these 3 that I've done thus far, you know, they've had to persevere through some personal storms, through some medical and health storms, you know, through some death of loved ones storms. But each one of these that I've highlighted thus far have showed up. They have still showed up for other people. They've persevered through their pain. You know, they kind of almost put their pain on pause to serve somebody else, to serve the vision, a vision of somebody else's, mission in life. They've showed up in spite of. Man, does that not speak volumes or not? What about the kind of people that just show just good old kindness, you know, to what society, you know, snarls their nose at, you know, somebody maybe being, you know, on the street sitting there begging. What about one that, you know, shows up to a church dirty? You know, I remember years ago, one of my unhoused friends, we used to do homeless ministry, my husband and I, for years with our previous church. And we would go to this little community of people. There was about 150 little campsites along this river. And we our church did it faithfully every 3rd Saturday of the month. And one of the gals, Miss Caroline, who we just fell in love with, she just was a love bug. She was one to be adored. She kept her little space, albeit a space of dirt out by a creek. She kept it well. She swept that dirt. She put a little picket fence around that dirt space. And we were always very, very mindful of coming into that space because that was their house, you know. And we just got the opportunity to love on her, to see her right where she was at, and love her back to life. She came out of that space and into her own apartment. And we got to see her in her apartment. I'm not sure where she is, as of now. You know, we did lose contact with her, but I remember her telling us one time we were leaving, and she always walked us out, and she took her hand and brushed her hand alongside my cheek and says, you know, I just love you. You're my only connection to the outside world. And there is something to be said when you see people. There's something about being seen and not overlooked. You know, I try my best coming from a space of being healed from rejection. I come from that space of I want to see people where they're at. I never want somebody, at least with the ability that I have, that they wouldn't feel left out, or they wouldn't feel like they're not a part of something. One thing that I have never liked, that I have always hated, was cliques. I don't do cliques. I don't try to find my way into that space. So it's always very, very important to me to be that person, be that one that cheers people on. I remember coming up in life and playing softball, years of recreational softball. And my mom, my daddy was on the road a lot. And so mama never missed a game. And there was something to be said about my mom, hearing my mom's voice from a distance saying, "Come on, baby girl, you got this. Come on, girl, you got this." And I remember Aunt Melody showed up one time, and she was fighting a battle with cancer. And I had 2 strikes against me. I had bases loaded, and I had 2 outs. My goodness, hearing my mom's voice from the distance. "Come on, girl, you got this, baby. You got this." Y'all, I cracked a grand slam, okay? And it was co-ed. I cracked that ball so hard, it went outside the fence, and I brought them runs home, and we won the game, So I can tell you personally, firsthand, what somebody cheering you on does. It does something on the inside of us. It does something when we spur one another on in love and good deeds. It does something when our intentions are pure and we have no strings attached, that we love without conditions, that we give without conditions. I'm talking so fast because I feel like I can't get this out quick enough. It is something I'm super passionate about. There's something about bringing sunshine to somebody's life, seeing them right where they're at and going, "Hey man, you don't deserve this," or, life could be better. Like you're better than this. And there's something about giving your hand out to pull people up and out of a situation and bringing sunshine to others on cloudy days, being the kind of person that you actually want to meet, and to be honest, loving other people really comes from love your neighbor as you love yourself. That good old golden rule, be the person that shows value, that not only says that you're valued or you're loved, but show that, right? Be that person that acts on it. I was in my marriage, even cooking my husband was never really a breakfast guy, but I started cooking him breakfast and say, "Honey, eat that." He's home. He works from home all the time now. So we really are in each other's space almost every day. And I have grown to really, really love it. And, I asked him one day, like, "What does it mean to you, when I cook you breakfast?" He said, "It makes me feel loved." He even said the other day, something about, "A sandwich from you is different." And I said, "Why?" I said, "We're doing the same things." He said, "But it's the love behind what you're doing," right? Everything that we do in our space and places that we are in has such a profound impact that we don't really think it does. There is something to somebody. I had a call today and I just said, "Hey, listen, man, I see you. I notice you. I want you to know that you're valued, you're seen, and you're loved." There is something to be said about showing kindness. Kindness goes a long way. There's something to be said when you're walking by somebody and say, "You look nice today," or "You have a great smile," or, my husband and I, when we go to restaurants, this is something I absolutely love again too, is that, oftentimes when you go into a service industry, such as a restaurant and whatnot, people often take the time to complain, right? This isn't cooked right, or this isn't done right, and I didn't ask for this, and can you move these plates and stuff off the table and whatnot. But I absolutely love to take the time to highlight areas like, hey man, thank you so much. We realize that you're busy in this space that you're in right here, but we appreciate your service. And even I'll go as far as to ask for the manager. And you can see the apprehension per se in the person as they're walking towards us. And I'll look at them right away and I said, hey, I'm not calling you over here to complain. I want to tell you about something good. And this is what I tell you. And you can actually ask my husband, for those of you that know me. I tell them all the time, people often take the time to complain, but rarely do they tell you what you're doing right. And I want to tell you about your person that served us today. They did A, B, C, D, F, G, and they were phenomenal, And you can literally see that weight lift off of that person, right? Because they thought they were coming to deal with a situation that wasn't good. So encouragement goes a long way. Love goes a long way. Putting hope into people's life goes a long way. Everybody can be a critic, but man, switch from being a critic and move into being a cheerleader. The world really could be so much brighter if you and I lived in that way. I'll leave you with this final thought. The Bible says that a merry heart doeth good like medicine, but a broken spirit dries the bones. Be one of these kind of people that brings life, joy, hope, and love into this world, okay? And you and I, we can really change the world. You and I, maybe one life at a time, but if we all do our part, we can do this. All right? So we'll catch you on the next week. All right. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye now.